Taking a look today at the Enleum, I think that's what we're going with, Enleum AMP-23R, which is the successor to the Bakoon AMP-13R, which is a 25 watt hybrid headphone speaker amp made in South Korea by a company that sort of straddles Korea and California. There's a long history. I think Six Moons maybe has like the full backstory on the name change from Bakoon to Enleum and all that. Nonetheless, this company's been around for a while. They've been producing just super exceptionally beautiful pieces of kit with insane attention to detail in terms of both the actual circuit design as well as the housing. This thing is just an incredible piece to look at and hold in real life, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. This amp has been getting a lot of attention right now. Some very notable reviewers have gotten on the bandwagon. I've been living with it for about 6 months, so I thought I'd share some thoughts as well. But I'll link to some of those other reviews because they're really good, and you know, I'm just here to just jabber about what I think and not actually invest a lot of time in production or post-production. So anyway, so yeah, this guy has got 2 sets of RCA in, voltage 1 and 2, and then it's got the InLink, which is like the Bakoon link, whatever they called it. It's basically BNC connections that would work with anything else the company makes. So Enleum doesn't currently make a DAC. I believe they might be working on one, I'm not sure. But if you happen to own old Bakoon stuff, like say the DAC 21, which I've tried with this, then you would get to interface that way, and in theory save some resolution. You get your speaker taps out here, and then around front you've got your 1/4 inch headphone out. I guess calling it a volume knob's not even fair. Very special, interesting gain management dynamics that they've come up with. And then your power / everything button right there. It also does have a remote. I don't have that handy right now, but that's a nice feature as well, to control the volume from across the room if you're using it as a speaker amp instead of a headphone amp. It does have these optional, actually recently announced as standard, isolation feet, and there's 3 of them, and you can see if I'm moaning a lot, it's because this thing is small but very heavy. But yeah, these are integrated right here. Really meant to have them, and actually recently they've decided just that everyone gets them standard. There is no option to get them with or without. That has increased the price. There's also a new remote that's a little bit slicker, I believe, and some new taps. They were having trouble getting these taps with all the messed up supply chain stuff that's happening right now. Anyway, why are people so gaga for this amp? 25 watts doesn't sound like a lot. And in the speaker world, it's not a lot, although there are so many wonderful high efficiency speakers that this would power beautifully. I got to try it with a pair of Klipsch Heresy 3s, and it drove them very, very nicely. Maybe not as much emphasis on the bass as I might like, but otherwise just a very lifelike, natural, well-defined sort of presentation. Just a real joy. For me, I'm coming mostly from the headphone world, and this became a popular option for the Susvara because there's not a ton of 25 watt options, and the headphone tap, as I understand it, gets all the juice that the speaker taps do, and you can set it to low or high gain. So I've actually used this with some very sensitive headphones as well, like 103 dB 30 ohm headphones, and it's dead silent. It sounds great with those. It's actually not dead silent, and by that I mean you can never turn the volume 100% off because of the special gain dynamics. So, you can mute it, but you can't turn it all the way off. So you're like, I don't know why that really matters, but if that really mattered to you, that's a fact. I do love this knob though. It's really cool. This is not a LED, obviously. It's just a little sort of white whatever that's moving behind these dots, these holes in the aluminum. But I love the shape of this. I mean, everything, like the finishes are just, they're just insane. The tolerances are nuts. Like, no one does this. Like, no one does all this machined aluminum and gets all these little gap tolerances just so bang on the money. It's crazy how well made that the housing is, not to mention the electronics. You pay a pretty penny for it, so you might expect that, but you pay a pretty penny for a lot of things in high-end audio and you don't get this level of quality, so it's worth celebrating how much effort they put into the actual object and having it sit there on, you know, your rack or your, you know, in your system. It's just a joy. It just makes me really happy that things are being made with that much love and attention to detail. So yeah, back to sound, back to headphones. Like I said, I've ran it with incredibly sensitive headphones and it sounds just lush and beautiful. And then I've ran it with, you know, the most demanding, the HE6 and the Sesfara, and it powers them beautifully. There's just this confidence in the sound that is so rewarding. You know, it's never straining. It's never at a lack of ability to drive and emphasize the things that need energy or need a dynamic nature. The thing, though, that I love about it is, like, I wrote one note to myself, is like, this is the best tube amp I've ever owned, because it does some of that sort of euphoric, sweet stuff that a really great tube amp does, where you forget that you're listening to electronics and you're just listening to music, and you know, you've got this fluidity in the sound. You know, it's hard to explain, but it's got that unmistakable natural thing. Maybe it's timbre, maybe it's just sort of extension of the notes. I don't know, but it's just so lovely. It's not the biggest, like, sound staging sort of amp I've heard, but it's got this intimacy, but it's a really nice intimacy. It's a welcome to intimacy. And what's crazy is you'll be listening to these, like, really lush mids that are sort of coming into your head, and you're just sort of, and then the sparkle, the little crispy, crackly, sparkly bits will jump off, and you're like, that, it almost feels like 2 amps. You're like, how are you both having this lushness and this rich and sweetness, and then also giving me these delightful little twinkly bits? I think that's probably what I have to say about this. Like, that's the magic of this amp. It is an amp that gives you that sort of organic, like I said, kind of almost tube-oriented sound in an insanely small package that's so beautifully made. Yeah. Does it have, you know, balanced XLR inputs? Nope. Can you use it as a preamp? Does it have an out? Nope. There are a lot of things it doesn't do, but as just a really, like, if you don't want to mess with a preamp, if you don't want to have a giant complicated integrated amp, if you don't need 35 inputs and outputs, if you're like, look, I got a turntable and I got a digital source and I want to power some headphones or some speakers or both, like, man, that is actually a pretty compelling, I was going to say value proposition, but, like, honestly, this thing's so expensive, it's hard to say that. But, you know, it could be like the one and done for a lot of folks who just want to go to some Pinnacle Phi, not 100K Pinnacle Phi, but 6K Pinnacle Phi, and kind of call it good. Anyway, these things are a little bit back ordered right now, a little bit hard to get, but I would say totally worth the wait. And having that connection that, you know, you can get it serviced in the States, as I understand it, in Southern California is very nice for something that's made outside of the States. So, yeah, slick package, wonderful sound, sort of compelling feature set. Yeah. Oh, I was going to say I did get to listen to it with the DAC-21, which is a Bakoon branded product from a handful of years ago. Very cool DAC that's like, it's got 3 lithium-ion batteries in it, so it's always running off battery power, and then when you turn it off, it charges itself from the AC mains, so it's like, you know, sort of super perfect power. I tried that through the B&C connections, as well as through the RCA connections. And I gotta say, I think I almost like the RCA better. There's like a little bit of fullerness, a little more body to it maybe. Maybe the BNC connections had like a slight edge on detail, but almost imperceptible. So it's cool that they're like planning, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think they would be putting these on here just to support their back catalog of DACs. I think there's going to be digital sources or other sources from them in the future that are going to take advantage of that, and that's exciting. You know, the owner has got a vision and a commitment and a love for this stuff, and is definitely pushing forward on it. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Anyway, let's call that good. This is Signcraft signing out.